Hello and welcome back. Today we have two topics to talk about: Ultra Instinct as we know it, and the true meaning behind Ultra Instinct that was lost in translation. First topic, Ultra Instinct as we know it. Viewed by martial artists as the absolute peak of their craft, autonomous Ultra Instinct is both a divine transformation and a mental state attained by a select few highly powered characters in Dragon Ball. It was first referenced by the Angel Whis during his sparring sessions with Goku and Vegeta in Dragon Ball Super. The initial transformation associated with this ability, known as Ultra Instinct Sign, made its earliest appearance during Goku's bout with Jiren during the Tournament of Power. Later on, during Goku's final confrontation against Jiren at the climax of the tournament, he obtained the completed version of this form known as Perfected Ultra Instinct, which gave him a massive boost in power to overwhelm his nigh-on invincible opponent. The form has been described as the peak of Goku's abilities at present. It is a departure from the progression of Super Saiyan transformations that were littered throughout Dragon Ball Z, accumulating in the divine form known as Super Saiyan Blue. Even the gods of destruction in Dragon Ball are said to struggle with obtaining this kind of power, with Goku being the only known mortal from Dragon Ball Z canon to have achieved it. Essentially, autonomous Ultra Instinct grants the users the ability to react independently of premeditated thought, circumventing the time needed for commands to travel from the brain to the limbs via nerve impulses. Instead, each limb and part of the body acts on its own response to a threat, executing the perfect move with perfect timing and precision. Users can then move much faster and more efficiently to adapt to whatever is thrown at them, eliminating the need for them to think about their movements beforehand. This also augments their attacks by unforeseen levels, launching them into the domain of divine beings such as angels. To be able to do this, the user must completely master their emotions, clear their mind of thought, act on pure intuition. Furthermore, they must also push through their limits with the aid of a trigger, which can either be the struggle of resisting an exceptionally powerful attack or other extreme experiences. Lastly, they must retain clarity in their thoughts and emotions while doing this. Failure at any step in this process will make all efforts in vain, and a user will not be able to achieve this state. Angels such as Whis and the Grand Master are said to always be in a state of autonomous Ultra Instinct, and it is a trademark ability for their kind. For mortals, this state is obtainable mainly through a divine transformation seen in Goku's case, where they first obtain the incomplete version of Ultra Instinct Sign. Once they learn to harness its power to a greater extent, they will be able to access the completed version known as Perfected Ultra Instinct, or even utilize its benefits while in their base state. This provides an incredible boost in strength, speed, and to a degree not seen before in the series. In its first stage, Ultra Instinct Sign users can dodge any attack intuitively, relying on their limbs to react and act independently at speeds that would have otherwise been impossible. However, this is not only the first phase, as dodging and moving are far easier to master compared to the offensive maneuvers, according to Whis. In this vein, a user will only obtain Perfected Ultra Instinct when they learn to extract the form's full potential while attacking. Since most martial artists are trained to think up strategies and look for weaknesses in their opponents, they will always be hindered from concentrating on the moment at hand, which is what Ultra Instinct demands. Once again, the time taken by impulses from the brain to travel to the limbs slows the user down, preventing them from utilizing the transformation to its fullest extent. Even after awakening it 3 times, he was only when he discarded all other concerns to focus solely on his fight with Jiren that Goku was able to master Ultra Instinct Sign and ascend to its next stage with Perfected Ultra Instinct. Following this, there is a considerable deal of additional training that must be undertaken to fully master the form and access it at will, as it exerts a considerable strain on the body due to the level of godly ki required to maintain it, as seen in how Goku's body horrifically gave out just as he was about to deal the final blow to Jiren in the Tournament of Power. Mortals who use autonomous Ultra Instinct risk pushing themselves beyond its natural limits. They will be severely worn out and risk of death in most extreme cases, as per the anime. Goku's use of the form has a time limit, and his body reached a point of intense exhaustion each time he had obtained Ultra Instinct sign, leading to the transformation fading out. Later on, he endured intense pain when his body gave out from the stress of using the completed form. Hence, mortals such as him must learn to access its full power at will while honing their body to become more accustomed to the toll it takes. Whis believes that even when mastered completely, there will still be some sort of time limit on the ability. Users of autonomous Ultra Instinct are also not entirely invincible, as they can still be defeated by opponents who have mastered the form to a higher degree, or those in possession of so much raw power that they can overcome the boosting strength it grants the user. Despite how he was commended for achieving perfected Ultra Instinct during his fight with Jiren, Goku's proficiency with the form at the time was still at the bare minimum when compared to more experienced users. Refining this technique would further allow him to access all of its benefits even in his base state. To negate the potential drawbacks of using the transformation for too long, most combatants who train to fight with a proactive and analytical approach to battle would struggle to attain Ultra Instinct, which is one of the form's biggest drawbacks. Consequently, it has been stated that the gods of destruction, such as Beerus, have difficulty mastering this form due to the emotional balance it requires, although they can harness some of its facets depending on their respective temperaments. Similarly, Vegeta had a hard time understanding how to obtain Ultra Instinct, which made him realize that it would not be suited to his fighting style. This made him embark on a different path and harness the power of destruction with his Ultra Ego form, which is far more aligned with his Saiyan instincts. Whis and the other angels are always in a state of autonomous Ultra Instinct, and their mastery of the form far exceeds anything that Goku was able to perform even during his fight against Jiren. Even when sparring with Whis after the Tournament of Power, Goku was easily beaten, despite how being able to tap into the godly ki necessary to manifest this mental state. After Whis, it has been mentioned to the Grand Minister's expertise in Ultra Instinct is second to absolutely no one, surpassing even his children by a considerable margin. If Goku truly intends to master the form, it is likely that he will need to receive more training from the Grand Minister to make use of autonomous Ultra Instinct to its fullest. Next, the true meaning of Goku's Ultra Instinct was lost in translation. Ultra Instinct is the greatest power in Dragon Ball Super, a technique of the gods and angels that allows for a fighter's body to move on its own, without needing willful reactions from the brain, or at least that's what fans were led to believe. However, the true nature of this ability is actually better described by its Japanese name, which possesses a degree of nuance that foreshadowed Goku's own development of the technique. While Ultra Instinct is an apt description of what the ability literally does, providing Goku with quick instinctual reactions, it is completely different from the original name. In Japanese, the technique is referred to as Megate no Gokui. Although Goku there is just a coincidence and has nothing to do with the character. This translates to something like Secret of the Self-Centered, but with a more positive connotation than self-centered usually has in English. Megate here means egoism or egotism, a pretty specific connotation for the power that has little to do with instinct, of course. But that's a bit of a mouthful and would have had a hard time fitting into dubs, so a different, catchier name was needed for English. When Goku initially introduced Ultra Instinct, it was meant to seem as if using the technique requires one to be purged of emotion, focused entirely on battle. However, this is the only way that angels, who are already dispassionate creatures by nature, would use the technique. For them, a manifestation of their true self would be a being that's completely detached from emotion. This provided incredibly hard for Goku, and for good reason. After all, channeling anger was key to Goku mastering Super Saiyan originally, and Goku's often shown to be passionate in battle, enjoying the challenges thrust upon him. Throughout Goku's training with Whis, however, it was made clear that Goku needed to find a way to make this power his own if he wanted to be able to use it consistently. In the Dragon Ball Super manga, Whis is shown telling Goku that he must discover his own version of Ultra Instinct, not simply copy what Whis and the other angels do. It takes Goku a while to understand this, but eventually he comes to realize, in the Granola the Survivor arc, chapter 85 of Super, that a version of Ultra Instinct that works for him would have to be one that makes use of his emotions, not one that requires him to seal them away. Once Goku realized this, and learns more about his family past from the recording of his father Bardock, he is able to understand himself more fully, becoming self-centered, as the Japanese name would suggest. To really make use of Ultra Instinct requires introspection and understanding of oneself. This allows Goku to unlock the true Ultra Instinct he uses during the final battle with Gas, so-called not because it's a true version of the technique used by Whis, that would be perfected Ultra Instinct, but because it's a version that makes use of Goku's own truth. The Japanese term eludes all of that. Ultra Instinct doesn't really convey the idea at all. Ultra Instinct, of course, is not the only technique with the naming scheme that's similar to true of Vegeta's Ultra Ego. In Japanese, Ultra Ego is referred to as Wagamama no Gokui, roughly translated to Secret of the Self-Indulgent, with Wagamama having most exactly the same name as Magate, with Wagamama having almost exactly the same meaning as Magate. In both terms, put an emphasis on the self, meaning that what fans know about Ultra Ego is in fact Vegeta's version of Ultra Instinct. Of course, it is a slightly more sinister implication of self-indulgence, suggesting that the users of Ultra Ego must enjoy their battle and the pain that they both receive and inflict. The user of Ultra Ego must have their mindset of a destroyer god, or else the technique won't work right. In fact, this is part of the reason why Vegeta still struggled despite using the technique against Gas. To properly utilize its power in the way a destroyer god would, Vegeta would need to return to his old behaviours from when he was a villain, something his character growth over the course of the series makes him reluctant to do. Vegeta simply doesn't delight in wanton destruction like he used to. It's holding him back from making full use of Ultra Ego. Simply put, the nature of destruction is no longer Vegeta's true self. However, like with Goku, this doesn't mean that he's failed at the technique. Vegeta will need to find himself and reconcile with who he was in order to use Ultra Ego at full strength. He could very well develop his very own variation of it as well, a true Ultra Ego, if that makes use of his more heroic attributes, and it seems that Vegeta is doing exactly that. Currently in the series, spending all his training time meditating on Beerus' planet, perhaps a recognition of the importance of destruction to the balance of the universe, or his willingness to take hits in the defense of others could form the basis of such a technique, allowing Vegeta to reach his true potential without ruining his character growth. The beautiful component of these new techniques is that the mastery of Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego is so inherently tied to oneself. The true way to grow these powers is by having Goku and Vegeta undergo more character development. For Goku, this has already happened. By learning about his father's heroic actions on planet Cereal, Goku found that his own heroism isn't just some fluke, it runs in family. Knowing where one came from is a big part of understanding oneself after all. And prior to this arc, Goku had almost no canonical knowledge of Bardock. Now, it's Vegeta's turn to rediscover who he is after undergoing such a change from the man he once was. He already had an epiphany after hearing Bardock's recording, realizing he does not need to shoulder the sins of the Saiyans and their pride. In conclusion, what has been translated as Ultra Instinct is in fact the supreme technique that a warrior can achieve by getting in touch with their true self. This is why Goku unlocks it after remembering about his Saiyan roots from Bardock's scouter recording. The assumption that Ultra Instinct means letting go of emotions is essentially wrong and based on the idea that the Angel's version of the technique is the only one. Thus, Goku's true Ultra Instinct is not Ultra Instinct with emotions, but Goku finding his own version of the technique as he's supposed to, because it's all about ego. As such, Ultra Ego and Ultra Instinct aren't as different as it seems from the English names and presentations. Both are about focusing on oneself and having a solid understanding of their own identity, despite the differences in their use. To use these techniques at their fullest, it is important to mold the technique to fit the wielder rather than the other way around. Vegeta and Goku must soon realize the truth about Ultra Instinct and master its principle if they hope to stand a chance against Frieza whenever the Dragon Ball Super manga gets back to that storyline. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.